you know, give the people over their credit, because even in the leftist news outlets, now all the focus is on Libya and all of that. But, you know, the revolution, the most amazing thing is that it continues in Tunisia and Egypt, but you don't read about it. And these youth there who spearheaded the revolution know everything that we're talking about today, because they have read all of this stuff as well. And this is the ongoing debate. They know what the military stands for, and they know that Mubarak leaving out is not the end of the revolution. And actually some amazing things have been happening in terms of strikes in factories, in terms of calls for a higher minimum wage, in terms of people in all facets of society revolting against management and forcing people that they should elect them. So the revolution is going on, while even the most sympathetic leftists, of course, turn their ear elsewhere. The other issue about Gaddafi in Libya, because initially he was anti-imperialist, and he did support a lot of great causes around the world. He supported Mandela and South Africa when everyone here was supporting the racist apartheid regime. It's true. But then everything changed, unfortunately, and he plays all kinds of cards. He plays the Palestine card, he played the Arab card, he played the but he said something very racist last month. In his appeal to the Europeans not to support the revolution, he said, you know, if this happens, all of Africa will be black in 5 years. So he was threatening them with immigration. Someone who says that is very problematic. And I'm afraid, I agree with a lot of what you said, but people in Libya, certain people in the capital who are beneficiaries of the regime are living off very well. But the majority of Libyans are living, just before coming here, I watched on Al Jazeera a report about how actually, no, they don't own their houses. They rent their houses, and a lot of them are living way below where they should be living. Now the issue now, I don't like Ahmadinejad, and I don't like Gaddafi, but it's amazing how the media here, and even in the left, we spend so much time and energy getting upset because X went and met with Y. Okay, if you Google Clinton and Gaddafi, you see that 1 month before the revolution, Hillary Clinton, the great icon of left and feminism, met with Gaddafi's son, who is the national security advisor. And all of these leaders of the great Western civilized countries, they all shook hands with all of these dictators just a month before. And even in the first weeks of the revolution, they were all trying to hold on to that. And throughout history, there are so many examples of the US and Great Britain and France and everyone always shaking hands with everyone who had blood on their hands. So, but why is it that when a non-European leader meets with another tyrant, it becomes, oh my God, I can't believe that. Okay, Ahmadinejad, he's horrible. Huh?
They call themselves a leftist.
So many people call themselves leftists, so what? But you know, this whole focus in the US media on the person themselves, it cloaks the actual dynamics and the reality of understanding the situation. Focus always on Saddam without seeing the other. And same thing with Gaddafi or with Islam. You don't see the actual dynamics and the political economy of the situation. You focus on the person. It becomes kind of a Hollywood narrative. Good guy, bad guy. Hate the bad guy, love the good guy. This is not how the world works. So what? Ahmadinejad met with Chavez. Okay, but you know, the US and all of these other countries have dealt with all kinds of horrible tyrants, and they support, you know, so why the big deal when it comes to Chavez or to Ahmadinejad?
No, because exactly the point there, it's just calling himself as a revolutionary, right? And while the bombs of Gaddafi is falling on the cities of Libya, he is still championing him.
Go ahead.
I just want to respond also to what you said. I mean, I completely agree with what Sinan was saying, but also to respond to Wafa. First of all, even though I think we shouldn't pay so much attention to these kinds of meetings and all that, I do want to explain a little bit that it's actually not that easy to always know what all these people are doing. I know this sounds absurd, especially for somebody who's from that region. But it's not actually that easy to know. I mean, like it was mentioned in Laura's talk, many people on the left were for a long time misled also about what's happening in Iran and supported the Iranian Revolution and so on. So it's very easy for people to be misled. And Chavez bases his foreign policy to a large extent, first of all, on personal relationships. So if he gets good rapport with the person, that counts for more than anything else. And second, he doesn't believe the news reports about these people because he knows that the news reports about him are totally false. And that's why I think it's absolutely amazing that you seem to fall in that trap of believing the right-wing media's depiction of Chavez as being a dictator. I mean, even by the standards of, even if Chavez had dismantled liberal democracy in Venezuela, which I would argue he has not, even if he had, I could still argue that he's also trying to create another kind of democracy. It's a more radical direct democracy through the communal councils, through creating cooperatives, through creating workers-controlled workplaces, and so on. But actually, the institutions of liberal democracy still continue in Venezuela and thrive. So I think it's just absolutely mind-boggling that one could say that Chavez is building a dictatorship, which to me that comes directly from the depiction of Venezuela from the right-wing media, and that's the only way I can explain that.
No, but I completely still disagree with you. I've seen it in Iraq when Saddam took power at the beginning, and it was very similar direction that Jaffa is going for. You know, just giving power to the people, empowering them, building institutions, but slowly...
Did Saddam Hussein have 14 elections?
Huh?
Did Saddam Hussein have 14 elections?
He had so many of them, but only one candidate, that's it.
Yeah, but that's not what's happening in Venezuela.
It's not exactly, I don't think you just... No, that's exactly what is happening there. Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's just like my point is just like we can't champion people because they're anti-US. Very simple thing. We have to call them on their act. That's it.
I agree.
I think that's extremely important. I actually want to go further, because the problem with Chavez is not merely that he met with Ahmadinejad, although that reveals something profound about him. But the deeper problem is that he hasn't led, and it is precisely, somebody made the point, why do we make a big deal about Chavez meeting with Ahmadinejad and not Clinton or these other meetings? It's because Chavez is posing as an alternative to empire and imperialism. Exactly. And the fact is he's not. And the fact is not just because he meets with reactionary regimes, but because he has not ruptured Venezuela out of the imperialist network. I'm going to keep saying this because it's true. He's restructured. It's still an oil economy, oil-based economy rooted in and based on oil for export, oil production for sale on the international global imperialist market. An economy that is destroying the environment, and frankly that is building in structured dependency of Venezuela. There are more social programs, but it's not done the way a genuine revolution that ruptures out of those relations would do it, where you build up an increasingly self-sustaining or majority self-sustaining economy, building up the agriculture. Instead, it's selling oil on the global market and subsidizing cheap imports of food that is totally at the fluctuations of the imperial markets. And it's very unstable, and it's not bringing, it's A, not rupturing out of those imperialist relations economically, and B, not carrying out a social revolution that's required. They were still into the Miss Universe pageants up until very recently. The social relations are backwards, and they're not going at changing them. And the reason this matters is not because it's not my vision of a perfect revolution, but because unless you get out of those relations of structured dependency, all that will happen is, yes, there's enclave development and certain segments of the oil-producing economy are developed, but the majority of that population remains in slums and shanty towns around Caracas and remains in backwards conditions, and there's no program to get out of that. All there is a program to reappropriate some of the surplus, some of the wealth from oil exports to social services, and there's a whole different way that's possible. And yes, he has his problems with U.S. imperialism, but that doesn't mean he's a force for liberation.
It's very true. I mean, he still export oil to the United States.
Yes,
you know, if there is a true revolution, why would you do that? It's very simple. Why would you even close networks because they're against him? I mean, these are basic things any simple mind would understand. That's a direction you are going to. It is going into dictatorship. It doesn't need a genius to figure that out.
Can
I say one thing?
China was not going to pay him the price the U.S. is doing. We're basically giving him high market money for his oil, and theoretically the U.S. government supporting 50% of his revolution because we're getting 35% of his oil. So we threatened to sell it to China,
Sir?
and China said we want it for X amount of money, and Chavez said no, I can't.
You're not